It's 2021 July. It's actually July the 5th. I decided to kind of do this mid-season gardening video. I saw a video I'd shot back in 2018, which was the first year we were out here, on July the 4th, and it's kind of interesting to see, or at least interesting to me, how the growing seasons are different, how some years are way ahead of others. So I decided maybe from here on out I'll start shooting a July the 4th video. And it's kind of a good time to do it because the initial work, or the busyness of getting the garden in and getting everything going, kind of hit a midpoint, and now it's pretty much just waiting mostly for the harvest. So it is July 5th and not July 4th, but close enough. So I was going to start down here at the strawberries. The strawberry season is over. We started picking strawberries around Memorial Day, and they lasted about a month. I have since pruned back all the plants on a June bearing strawberry. After the harvest is over, you take, and some people use just a mower and mow everything off. I actually used hedge clippers and take everything back to the crowns almost. You've cut off all the foliage. I did that about 2 weeks ago, and you can see that the strawberry plants, then they then rejuvenate or regenerate themselves and start getting ready for the fruiting season for next year. And they'll start putting off these little buds, and this is actually what will produce the fruit for next year. So we started this patch in 2019, and so this is really the first year. It takes about 2 years for the strawberries to really start producing well, and we had it was beyond any expectation I had as far as the strawberry harvest. I have 3 short rows here, which are about 15 feet each, and we harvested somewhere between 45 and 50 pounds of strawberries off of these plants. So we were really pleased with it, and they were really very good berries. I started a few plants to give away to Jennifer, and then I'm starting some more here for Laura. But anyway, before I pruned them all back, they were putting off runners. So instead of just planting the runner in the ground to start a new plant, I just put them in these cups of potting soil. And then when they start establishing the new plant in the pot instead of in the ground. So when these get established and are able to survive on their own, which most of these look like they're at that stage now, you can just go ahead and clip the runner off, and then you have a strawberry plant that you can move around. So next year I will probably do that, start some new plants in cups, and then next year will be the 3rd year, so I will slowly start every year replacing maybe a certain percentage of my plants, because they say about 3 or 4 years for a strawberry plant, and the productivity will start going down. So you kind of slowly every year want to replace a certain percentage of your plants, and that way your patch will stay vibrant and productive for years and years and years. So that's the strawberries. Very happy with those this year. All my onions this year I started from seed. I've got some here that I planted in the main garden. They're looking pretty well. I put these out a little bit later than I started them all at the same time, but these went out a little bit later in the main garden. I have started some in the raised beds. I had 2 varieties, yellow and red. These are the yellows, of course. So they're doing pretty well in the raised beds. These onions here are actually onions I put out late summer last year, and they just kind of fizzled and petered out, and I just kind of thought they were a lost cause. So, but I decided just to go ahead and leave them in the garden through the winter. And the spring, they kind of came back to life and took off, and so they produced pretty nice onions. So we've been using kind of some of those now. Being the second year on the onion plant, they did come up and start to bolt, but I just broke the flower head off and let them go, and they've been doing fine. So we've been using those. So pretty happy with those. Like I said, the onions here, some of those are the white or yellows and some of them are the red. These are a little bit behind the ones in the raised beds, but I think they're going to be okay. Potatoes, I have two varieties. I have red Pontiac here and the white Kennebec down here. They're doing very well. We've dug a few of them up and just had some boiled and brown potatoes one evening for dinner. So those are doing real well. My jalapenos, I started some from seed, and jalapenos I just struggle with starting my own plants, so I wound up buying some extra plants, and that's what's here. So they're kind of slow to get started. I made these little I guess plant trellises out of scrap pieces of cattle panel. I've got another video on how I made those if you're interested in that. Coming back over to the raised bed, we have some carrots, which I've been pulling some of those. We had spinach, which is that's all done. I got cilantro. I put out some basil plants, and they've been doing very well. We've actually harvested quite a bit of basil and dehydrated it and gave some of it away. Another jalapeno plant, that is a mini bell pepper plant that I saved the seeds from store-bought mini bells in the bag. I'm kind of curious as to see what kind of peppers those will actually turn out to be, if those will be kind of a true to form pepper of what I bought, or if you have no way of knowing if those were some kind of a hybrid, and if the seeds will produce a pepper that kind of reverts back to one of the parent plants. Put out some lettuce this year. Put out both the Bibb lettuce and the iceberg head lettuce, and we're not big lettuce eaters, so they've just kind of gone in the garden too long, and the weather's getting hot, and we just never really got around to utilizing it. We did cut some leaves off of this one the other day, and it was very bitter, so it wasn't very good lettuce. So I'm not sure if I'll put out lettuce again anymore. I decided I wanted to build some Martin houses out of gourds, so I started some Martin house gourd plants, and I'm going to have them climb this trellis on this side, and see, they're pretty prolific. On this side I have butternut squash that Laura gave me the seeds from some squash that she had bought at the grocery store, so they're looking nice and healthy. So the idea is, of course, squash is going to grow this way, the gourds are going to grow that way, and I'm going to have a little arbor there of squash and gourds. And then this is my first batch of corn. I've actually put out more corn this year, probably because that seems to be what we get the most enjoyment out of. It started tasseling maybe about a week ago. This variety is a variety I haven't tried before, which is Peaches and Cream. We've always put out the ambrosia corn, and we had real good luck with it and really like it, but I decided to try to do something a little bit different. But I did not get rid of the ambrosia corn altogether, so we got two varieties out, so we can kind of compare them. So the first planting, this was Peaches and Cream, and I got it out pretty early this year. I had to we're here in central Indiana, which I think is zone 5, so April is, I don't remember what date I think I put it out in late April, which is actually very early to be putting out sweet corn in this area. But I had the of course I had the space and I had the seed, so I thought, well, I'll just put it out there and see what happens. Didn't really have anything to lose except time, and it's doing pretty well. I have not yet seen any ears. Yeah, there's an ear right there that's starting to form and starting to silk out. So maybe in 2 or 3 weeks we might have some corn. Probably more like 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. But that'll probably be some of the earliest corn I've had. I was looking back at the 2018 video, and I did have some corn tasseling at that time. But usually my sweet corn is later, a lot later than that. So anyway, the first planting was peaches and cream, and then the taller plant, the second planting was ambrosia. Third planting is back to peaches and cream here, and then my last planting right here was ambrosia again. And each succession planting, I'm spacing them out about 10 days to 2 weeks. So we should have a pretty good stretch there of sweet corn once everything kind of gets going, gets producing. Just on a whim, I've always thought tobacco plants were kind of cool, so I found some seed online and I started my own tobacco plants. And I gave Scott and Jennifer 3 plants, and these are the other 3 plants I saved. And you can see they're doing pretty well. I didn't really know what to expect. I don't smoke, I don't chew, but I just did it more for the novelty of it. And you can see plants are pretty tall, and they put out these nice purple flowers, which I didn't really know what to expect for that. A lot of buds on there, so they're going to be flowering for quite some time. So I thought those were kind of neat. Just did 1 row of green beans this year because we still have quite a few green beans in cans, and I think we kind of found out last year we enjoy the fresh green beans just as much as the canned. So gonna go mostly with 1 row this year, which is a fraction of what I've done in previous years. So those are looking nice. They're starting to bloom. Kensington and myself, she helped me put out some. These are the kind of a dwarf sunflower. I think they get like 3 or 4 feet tall. Those are looking nice, and kind of was looking forward to having some color in the garden. And then my tomatoes, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, I think there's 7 varieties in here. Most of these were started from seed. The only ones that weren't were these 4 plants here, which are the Cherokee purples, which I had not intended to put out that many tomato plants, but I got to watching YouTube videos and people were really talking up the Cherokee purple tomatoes for their flavor. So I went and bought some Cherokee purples and put them out. And of course, you can only buy, you got to buy them by 4 at a time. So I wound up with 4 more plants than I really anticipated. So I'm kind of anxious to see how those are going to do. And then these 2 here are Supersonics, which are kind of a beefsteak tomato. And I did those in 2018, and those did pretty well. I have Rutgers tomatoes, which I put out last year for the first time. They're an heirloom. And I was kind of so-so about them. They did okay last year. So I thought I'd put them out one more time and see, give them a second chance. These are the Romas. Of course, those are for salsa and sauces. These 2 are The heck are these? Oh, these are the Super 100s. These are a cherry tomato. You can see they're starting to put out a few tomatoes here. All my plants have tomatoes on them, green tomatoes. These two are Jet Stars, which seem to be very popular with people. And then this one lone one, I ordered from some seeds from Totally Tomato, and they sent me a trial packet of seeds called a pink beefsteak, and I wasn't really interested in it, but I decided I'd give it a chance, so I started a plant of it. And one thing I noticed right away is these are what they call a potato leaf tomato. If you look at the leaf on this one, let me pinch what leaf off here. If you look at the leaf on this one and compare it to these, you can see how different the leaf is, and that's what they call a potato leaf variety of tomato. So on the other raised beds, I just decided to experiment with putting some potatoes, a few potatoes. I had some leftover seed potatoes, so I just threw them in the raised bed to see how they would do down here. Cabbage and broccoli. The broccoli, I don't know, I just don't seem to have a lot of success with the broccoli. The plants are very vigorous and look really nice, but it doesn't produce much in the way of one nice big central head. If I don't get out here and clip them really quick, they'll just go to flower real quick on me. So I wind up with just a bunch of smaller heads like this. We have harvested one head of cabbage 2 days ago that Joe made coleslaw out of. It was Danish ballhead. This is a red cabbage here, which is still producing a head, and this was the Danish ballhead, and there's another one over here that's putting on a head right there. Cucumbers are my Wisconsin 58, which I made pickles out of last year, and I'm hoping to make a pickle arbor, or cucumber arbor out of those. I picked one cucumber the other day, but they're really starting. They're going to be going gangbusters here in a few days. There's one. Where was that? There was one in here that's almost ready to be picked right there. Looks like I got some cucumber. That's not a cucumber beetle, but I saw a cucumber beetle on one of these the other day. But the plants are getting big enough and vigorous enough that I think they can handle a little bit of a cucumber. In fact, that might be one cucumber beetle of some sort right there. I got more broccoli. Looks like I need to get out here and clip the heads on this one. More the other side of my cucumbers. Here's another head of lettuce. This was an iceberg lettuce. Same thing down there. We just growing stuff we're not using. Cayenne pepper from seed. I decided to try something a little bit different on the peppers that I've never tried before. These are Anaheim chilies. There's two of these. They're looking very nice. Starting to flower. I haven't seen any peppers on those yet. That's another jalapeno that I purchased. A little bit of oregano in here down here that I clipped some off yesterday. And this is a red bell pepper plant. Another plant that I think it was Totally Tomato sent me the seeds for that one as a trial seed, just for buying some of the other seeds. They throw in extra stuff sometimes. So like I said at the beginning of the video, it's sometimes kind of interesting to see how the growing seasons differ from one year to the next. Some years are early, some years are late. As I was looking at the 2018 video, my garden was way ahead of where it is now. The cabbage was done, the cucumbers were done, I think the onions were done, I did have some corn tasseling at that time, which I have corn tasseling now, so I'm pretty much the same point as I was then. I had peppers. My pepper plants were loaded with peppers at that time, whereas now they're just now starting to bloom, and it's the same time of year. But I think 2018, it was a little bit drier and warmer spring, and so things got started a little earlier. And the other thing, that was the first year I was out here, and we were out here in the first year for my garden, so I was probably a little anxious to get things started, a little overzealous maybe. Started buying and putting out plants just as soon as they appeared in the stores. And that's okay if the weather will accommodate it, but sometimes if the soil temperature is still too cool, and you get your plants out kind of early, thinking you're getting ahead of everybody else, getting a head start, they just kind of languish. So one thing I've learned since then, you're just about as well off to kind of hold off until things warm up, and your plants will get off to, you'll hit the ground running, no pun intended. But anyway, the point is, I was trying to get around to, is it's not just us, it's the farmers that have to deal with this. Because if you look at the 2018 video, the field corn behind our house was way above my head. It was about 7 or 8 feet tall, and it was all tasseled out. Whereas you look at this year, it's not even shoulder height yet. So it's just the seasons, the way things change from one year to the next. And if you're gardening, that's just something you have to accept and deal with. So the bottom line is all my plants look pretty vigorous and healthy. Nothing to worry about. One thing to me is kind of interesting. The first year I was out here, my corn kept getting blown over because our soil is a loamy soil, and so when we get a heavy rain, it gets really soft, and we always have a lot of wind, and it would just blow the sweet corn flat on the ground. And I kind of panicked over it, so I would go in and try to stand the corn back up, and usually I would just do more harm than good. So what I learned since then is that as soon as we get some sunny days after the corn has been blown down, it will stand itself back up. So the interesting thing about this corn, as nice as it looks, this corn was blown flat 3 times this spring. Started out when it was about 18 inches tall, and come out here after a storm, and it would just be laying flat on the ground, and then with 2 or 3 days it would be standing back up. Week or 10 days later it happened again, and so this corn was blown down 3 times, and I didn't do anything to it. And if you look at it, it's all back upright and healthy. And so you go online, people will give you different recommendations on what to do with corn that's blown down. Most of them will say, you got to try to stand it up, but it will take care of itself. So that's pretty much it for the 2021 July 4th, July 5th gardening report. So that's it. Bye.